Hello everybody, this is Excalibur of Excalibur Zone Gaming, and welcome to another episode of What's the Combo? This time we're going to be looking at a particular pair of cards that work well with a particular mechanic. Let's see here, where is it? I thought I added him. Yes, Mikaeus the Unhallowed and Melira, Sylvok Outcast. And the mechanic is Persist. Now, Persist is one of those interesting, there we go, and I'm going to see if that fixed that. No, it didn't. Okay, so anyway, Persist allows a creature to come back into play when after it dies, and it comes back with a -1/-1 counter on it. Now, that's a special mechanic that works very well with Mikaeus, and works especially well with, where is she? Melira, Sylvok Outcast. Okay, so with Mikaeus, as long as the creature is non-human, like a treefolk shaman or vampire or fairy wizard, it will have a +1/+1 and has Undying. In other words, when it dies, it comes back with a +1/+1 counter on it. So that's what this plays off of, the Persist. When a -1/-1 and a +1/+1 go onto a creature at the same time, they both cancel out and nothing is put on. So, as long as you can somehow sacrifice a creature over and over and over again, you will have an infinite loop with Mikaeus and a Persist creature. Additionally, if you have Melira, Sylvok Outcast, in lieu of Mikaeus, creatures you control can't have -1/-1 counters placed on them. So, and she also has other benefits, such as you can't get poison counters, and creatures your opponents control lose infect. So, the cool thing about Melira is when the Persist creature comes back, no -1/-1 counters are put on anyway, so the Persist will work again and again and again and again and again. And there are a lot, and I mean a lot, of Persist creatures around, and I'm just moving stuff out of the way. So there's Woodfall Primus. When it enters the battlefield, destroy a target non-creature permanent. So you wipe the board of everything but creatures. Yeah, and that is a must ability. So if your opponents are out of lands and artifacts and enchantments, and Woodfall Primus dies again and comes back, you have to start targeting your own stuff. Glen Alandra Archmage. Now, when she is persistent, when she's sacrificed with her own ability, you can counter a non-creature spell. And she persists with the -1/-1, of course. There is a lot here. We've got Lingering Tormentor, who just has fear and persist. We have Heart Mentor, which at the beginning of your upkeep, remove a -1/-1 counter from each creature you control, and he has persist. We have Grazing Kelpie, which has persist, and you can pay 1 and sacrifice it to put target card in the graveyard on the bottom of its owner's library. So this way you can cycle stuff. Like if Melira dies, you can sacrifice Grazing Kelpie to put Melira on your on the bottom of your graveyard. Murderous Redcap is notorious with Melira because Murderous Redcap does damage equal to its power to target creature or player. So you can infinitely ping for 2 to kill everybody on the table. Let's see here. There are reasons these guys are here, and it's all because of other things. Cauldron Haze allows you to give persist to any number of target creatures. Safehold Elite has persist, and that's all it has. Spawning Pit is a sack, outlet, sack, outlet, sack, outlet, sack, sack. Restless Apparition is just a +3/+3 until end of turn, and it has persist. Kitchen Finks is infinite life with either of these two around, and a sacrifice outlet because you gain 2 life every time it comes back. Then we have Redclaw Tro, which just has persist. Like the other ones, it's a bear, or little bit more than a bear, actually. Tatterkite is a special kind of card. I'm going to go ahead and move that over here. It can't have counters placed on it. So with Tatterkite and Mikaeus, you have an infinite combo right there. Wing Rattle Scarecrow has Persist as long as you control a black creature. The Scuzzback Marauders has Persist. Now, if you're doing Enter the Battlefield triggers, you can easily have things like Warstorm Surge and stuff like that to do damage when things come back. But there are other things you can do, like buff up creatures and do a whole bunch of other stuff with Persist going on. Cauldron of Souls, choose any number of target creatures. They gain Persist until end of turn. Let's see here. This guy, the Gravelgill Axe Shark, also has Persist. A lot of these. Here's another one. Melira's Keepers can have counters placed on it. So, as long as you have a sacrifice outlet, Mikaeus the Lunarch is an infinite combo with that. Airy Oaths, sacrifice it, deals damage equal to its power to target creature with flying. So immediately remove all the creatures with flying. Thunderblust has trample as long as there's a -1/-1 counter on it. The Fury Stoke Giant, when it comes into play, other creatures you control get tapped. This creature deals 2 damage to target creature or player until end of turn, and it has Persist. And these work in conjunction with a whole bunch of stuff, like Trapjaw Kelpie is just a Persist creature. The Twilight Shepherd, when it enters the battlefield, you return your hand all cards in your graveyard that were put there from the battlefield this turn with Persist as well. So you've got all these Persist creatures. The Rattleblaze Scarecrow has Persist as long as you have a black creature in play. And I think this is most of them. We'll move these guys up. Cauldron of Souls goes up. There we go. We have this. Yep, the Kithkin Spellduster, which also has Persist. And I think those are all the Persist dudes. Yeah. These are all Persist. Now, I started putting together a Persist deck to, not a deck, but a Persist lineup and stuff like that with a bunch of effects to work with Mikaeus, and I ended up building a deck. And I will go over that deck in a future deck tech. I'll have to take a look and see if I can't get it built, though. So, Melira and Mikaeus, they both go perfectly with all these guys because the Persist remains and the creatures can be used over and over and over again. Now, one of the things here, and this gives Persist to everything, and Melira's Keepers and Tatterkite are part of that as well because they can't get -1/-1 counters. So, as long as, well, they can't have counters. That's the Mikaeus the Unhallowed part. And they aren't, well, the Melira's Keepers are human, so it doesn't work. So, yeah, Melira's Keepers. We'll just go ahead and remove them because they are not really useful in the deck, but Tatterkite is. So, Melira Sylvok Outcast will allow these guys here, all the Persist creatures, to go infinite. As long as you have a sacrifice outlet, or you have enough mana to sacrifice them per their abilities. Tatterkite can't have counters placed on it, so it will go infinite with Mikaeus as long as you have a way to sacrifice it. And to sacrifice it, let's go ahead and we will move all these cards out of the way and build our sacrifice cards up at the top. Yes, indeed. This is unfortunately a lot of messy abilities, so here we go. Let's get these all set up so that you can see them. And we will start with the Viscera Seer. Sacrifice a creature to scry 1. So you can index your deck to get to whatever cards you want. Bloodthrone Vampire. Sacrifice a creature. He gets +2/+2. In the same way, Devouring Swarm gets +1/+1. Let's see here. And these are creatures that just get bigger and bigger with more creatures sacrificed to them. +2/+2 until end of turn. +2/+2 until end of turn. So there's a lot of black cards. +1/+1 on the Blood Flow Connoisseur. Flesh Eater Imp has Infect, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Tetravis, and also Triskelion and Pentavis are all part of the Mikaeus combo, which I didn't put them in. So let's go ahead and add Triskelion. And we have to clear the filter because I was looking for ways to remove +1/+1 counters. So we have Triskelion, and that's Tetravis. We need to get Triskelivis, and we need to get Pentavis. There we go. I'm not going to put Doubling Season, Parallel Lives, or Savage Summoning or Savage Fury. One of those two. I can't remember exactly what it is. But what it does is those 3 cards put multiple tokens, multiple counters on creatures. Like Parallel Lives says double all tokens, Doubling Season, double all tokens, double all counters. And I think Savage Summoning does the same thing. Well, these guys are completely different. I'm going to set them over here because they have special function. Alright. Dross Hopper. Sacrifice a creature to give it flying. Let's get here. Nantuko Husk is a sacrifice creature. It gets +2/+2. There you go. Scarland Tyrannax, +1/+1. Maul of the Obsidat. Creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. So you sacrifice your Persist guys, and all your creatures get +1/+1. Then we have Sadistic Hypnotist, which target player discards 2 cards whenever you sacrifice a creature. Puppeteer Click. Oh, has Persist as well. Let me make sure he's down here with the Persist stuff. When he comes into play, put target creature card in opponent's graveyard into play under your control. It has haste. So with all these Persists, you have ways to kill off your opponent's creatures and then put them into play for you. We're going to move that out of the way. Let's see here. Vishkal, Blood Arbiter. Sacrifice a creature, put X +1/+1 counters on Vishkal, where X is the sacrifice creature's power. And you can remove all counters from him, and target creature gets -1/-1 for each +1/+1. So that's another way to get rid of other creatures, and you can do this infinitely. Fallen Angel was one of the first ones to do this kind of thing, where you sacrifice a creature to get +2/+1 till end of turn. Carrion Feeder is a +1/+1. So you can see all these creatures have a lot of ways to buff themselves. Phyrexian Plague Lord is used to give -1/-1 to all creatures your opponents control for the most part. Now, Spawning Pit, you put charge counters on it for each creature you kill, and then you remove 2 charge counters from it to put it to spawn artifact creature token into play. So for every 2 creatures that you sacrifice, you can remove 2 of those to put in an artifact. So it's a way to whittle things down. So if you make 100 iterations, you get 52 2-spawn artifact creature tokens. Now this is one, Martyr's Cause, a white with a sacrifice creature. Prevent all damage to creature or player from one source. Perilous Forays, you pay 1, but you sacrifice a creature to search your library for a land card with basic land type, put into play tapped, then shuffle your library. This is a way to ramp up your deck, your board really quickly. Goblin Bombardment, sacrifice a creature, 1 damage target creature or player. There's your direct damage. Altar of Dementia, sacrifice a creature, puts the number of cards equals sacrifice creature's power from the top of his or her library. You mill your opponent to death. Phyrexian Altar. And there's also Altar of the Brood, which whenever creature enters the battlefield, all your opponents mill cards. Phyrexian Altar is 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Ashnod's Altar is 2 colorless. And then finally, the Shattergang Brothers. When you pay 2 in a red, or 2 in a black and sacrifice a creature, each other player sacks a creature. These guys are nasty. And you can sacrifice an artifact to sack an artifact for everybody and an enchantment for enchantments. Now, one of the cool things here is with Excalibur, you have 3 +1/+1 counters on it, and we can put the Cauldron of Souls back over there. And for 1 and remove a +1/+1 counter from Excalibur, you put a 1/1 colorless Excalibite artifact creature, and you sacrifice it to deal 1 damage to target creature player. Now, the cool thing with this is, to target creature or player, you have to have 3 mana to start, or at least 1. And then you need something like Ashnod's Altar, which produces 2 colorless. So, 1, you take that creature and then sacrifice it to make 1 mana. And if you have Doubling Season or something in play, you'll be creating the same number of creatures and double the mana and stuff like that. Infinite creatures, infinite mana. And then you ping 2 of them on this guy, and Mikaeus will cause it to come back with an additional +1/+1 counter. So it's 4 +1/+1 counters, and you end up sacking 2 of those guys to Ashnod's Altar, then 2 to it. So you get an infinite number of enter the battlefield and leave the battlefield effects. Now that can be helpful with things like what is her name? I can't remember her name. She is a commander, and whenever a creature dies, you can do 1 point of damage. Or Stalking Vengeance deals 1 toughness to the player. But this with Mikaeus allows you to and Ashnod's Altar allows you to ping it or a player and itself for extra damage and extra mana, especially if you have Doubling Season or Perilous Lives or whatever on to play. Now, the Tetravus is gets 3 +1/+1 counters. During your upkeep, you may remove... Oh, this is an upkeep. Yeah. Misread that one. Triskelion is the classic Mikaeus Triskelion blow-up. It has 3 +1/+1 counters on it. You remove a +1/+1 counter from Triskelion, and you ping your opponent. You remove another one, you ping your opponent. You remove the last one, and you ping itself. So, you remove 2, sorry. First one, ping your opponent, and then 2 to ping itself, because Mikaeus gives it +1, and then it comes back and it's got 4. Then you do 2 to your opponent, then 2 to itself. Mikaeus brings back 2 to opponent, 2 to yourself. So it goes infinite. Pentavus is a special case, and it has 5 +1/+1 counters on it. Now, to start this off, you spend 1 mana to get a +1/+1 counter from Pentavus, and you put a Pentavite into play. Well, you can sacrifice that Pentavite to Ashnod's Altar, so you'll have 2 floating mana. Then you remove a +1/+1 counter and sacrifice it. And then you keep doing that until you have nothing on Pentavus. And then you sacrifice Pentavus to Ashnod's Altar. So you've got all these Pentavites in play that are 2/2s. Then you bring Pentavus back with Mikaeus the Unhallowed, and you do it all over again with all this extra mana you have, because each Pentavite gives you 2 colorless mana with Ashnod's Altar, and you end up getting an infinite number of 2/2 artifact creatures that you can use with something like Goblin Bombardment, and sacrifice all those Pentavites to do damage to your opponent. Or you can where is it? Put a bunch of spawn counters on Spawning Pit, that kind of thing, or pump up any of these guys that pump. And also there are creatures that whenever you sacrifice a creature or lose a creature, everybody sacks a creature, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of stuff you can do with these guys up here and this Persist stuff. So using this as your sack outlet and these 2 here to keep them coming for forever, you pump up all your stuff, or you do infinite damage, or a whole bunch of other things, and that will get the job done. These are major blow-up combos, and a lot of black decks will have Mikaeus and Triskelion in play. Green-black, I've seen, there we go, Triskelion. Green-black, I've seen, what is it, Tooth and Nail? Tooth and Claw, something like that, that will actually allow you to search for 2 creatures, and if you pay a certain amount, then more than you can put them both into play at the same time, and once these 2 hit and nobody does anything, you can go through and your opponents. No problem whatsoever. Melira just works perfectly with any Persist creature and any sacrifice outlet to do whatever you need, because as soon as a creature comes back, they don't get the -1/-1. And Mikaeus works with all of them as well, because it gives them Undying, and the -1/-1 counters and the +1/+1 counters even out. So you just sit there and you make infinite sacrifices, infinite enter the battlefields, and infinite leaves the battlefield, and you do stuff like with Goblin Bombardment and Melira, because that's only 4 mana there. You could have both of these out by turn 3, and if you have an inexpensive green card, which there are no inexpensive green cards, of course, green and red. Let's take a look at the reds. This guy would work. So you probably have to look at the Wing Rattle Scarecrow. Nope, you can't do that because he doesn't have Persist. So he has Persist when you have a black creature. It just gets tricky, that's all. Trying to figure out things that will work in the deck. Just mono green or green red or just black green won't work. You need black, green, and red generally, and that works. And that works well with a lot of things. So, like black, green, and red, you get that. There's Murderous Redcap and Living Tormentor. So if you have black and red, Murderous Redcap and Mikaeus is infinite death to everybody on the table. Let's see here. If you have white in your deck, then Safe Hold Elite will work. There's a whole bunch of stuff. If you have your commander as like the Reaper King, which is a scarecrow that's rainbow identity, then you can, let's just double check so I'm not giving you bad. So, Reaper King. Yeah, he's a rainbow. So you can put the Reaper King as your commander, and you could put all these cards in without any issue. And whenever another Scarecrow comes into play under your control, destroy target permanent. So, other Scarecrow creatures you get. So, with some of these guys, like he's black, there you go. That guy now has a wonderful black creature in play, and he has Persist. Anyway, the whole thing was Melira and Mikaeus and Persist creatures. And any creatures that have Persist will work beautifully with these 2 cards. Having these sacrifice outlets is even better, because there you go, red, black, and green, sacrifice creature, +1/+1 counter on Scarlet Tyrant, Thrynax. So he's just going to go super big dirtles, and if you do it properly, you have multiple creatures out that can attack your opponents, and you don't have to worry about it. You could put Splinter Twin, or you could put Kiki Jiki into the deck to create lots of stuff. You could put in Thornbite Staff to put in untapping capability and a lot of this stuff. There's a whole bunch of things you can do. So keep that in mind. Whoa, there we go. And that's about it. So this is Mikaeus the Lunarch and Melira Sylvach. Outcast plus Persist for the most part, and sacrifice outlets. Until next time, enjoy playing games. Enjoy playing Magic the Gathering. Please like, favorite, and subscribe. It really helps me to know that people are watching these videos and at least getting a little something out of them. If you could please visit www.patreon.com/ExcaliburZone. It would be awesome if you could become a patron, because even just $1 a month will help me a lot. It gets me closer to my dream of doing this full time, putting out more videos, more content, more diverse content. That's what I'm going for. As always, this is Excalibur, and I am out.